Hi everyone, it's Deborah, and today I'm doing something a little bit different again. I'm going to take you through my quilt book where I record the quilts that I'm making or have made. And after I've gone through this, just showing you a little bit about what I do to keep track of quilts that I've made, I'm then going to show you the spreadsheet that I've done where I keep track of the fabric that I've got and what I'm going to make with it. So that's just for quilting, nothing else. And I will start with my book. So initially I just bought this blank book, so it doesn't have any lines or anything in it, and I thought that that would be a good thing to start with. And I started by putting my quilts in. So I started at number 7, as you can see, and that was the 7th quilt that I've made. And then I realised I didn't have the others, so I went back and put some of the others in, and I started to work out my patterns and how much I needed for the border and the backing and the batting and all of that sort of stuff for each quilt. And also, if I had it, I stuck the tag that comes with the quilt when you buy the pre-cuts. They usually come with a little tag saying what they are. So I started by doing that, as you can see, and working out the design. That's why I wanted a book that was blank, so that I could draw in it as well as write in it. And here is another one. This one here, I don't think I've actually finished yet. I don't believe I have finished. Oh yes, I have finished that one. Sorry, yes, that one's been finished. And working out what the different things would be for how I was going to do the backing and all of that and that sort of stuff, as you can see from all my scribbles, and what type of quilt it is. So this one here is Independence Trail, and I did a curved log cabin, and that's just a little design so that I could remember what to do for the curved log cabin and what colour I was going to do, because this one is actually done with the quilt fabric and then white as well. So that's why I've got that written down there so that I would remember. And here's another one. So you can see I'm just started to use it to work out my patterns and all of that sort of stuff. And then as I was going, I thought I really should keep a list of who I made all these quilts for. And so in the back of the book, that's what I started doing. So it's a bit random. I've started from the back page and I've worked my way forward. So here is the quilts, and you can see that is 2009 when I first started actually making a quilt, and some of them are a bit out of order, but then I have 12 there, and then I did this after the fact, I must say, so I didn't actually put some of them in order, but they're close enough. And then I did nothing, as you can see, until I did one in 2014, and then I did nothing until 2017. And then I did quite a few in 2017. There's another 2016, because I said there, I did this after the fact. And then I started to say here when it was actually completed. Although I started in 2017, I didn't complete this one until November 2021, and this one in 2019. I had a bit of a hiatus during those years. And then through in 2020, I did none. And then in 2021, I did a whole heap. So some of them I have completed. I've not completed that one or that fabric yet. But, I will. Don't worry. It's there in my unfinished objects or my work in progress list. And here it is here. And you can see that I haven't actually updated this since 2021. So I will have to get on to that, mainly because I was sick with going through chemo and all of that and operations and things in 2021 in sort of the back half of the year. So you can see here that, I haven't completed. I've got here, this one here I completed in 2023 and this in 2022, but I haven't actually fully updated the book as yet. So now I'm going to take you through my spreadsheet that I use to track what fabrics I have. I have to admit that I do try and keep this updated, but it hasn't been updated in a little while, so I've been a bit slack about that. But I'll take you through it anyway. It may be of use to someone. So this is what it looks like overall, and now I'm just going to zoom in so that you can read it a bit better. I'm using a spreadsheet program, Excel. You can use any spreadsheet program, or maybe you can adapt this idea to other programs or however you want to do it. But I'll take you through how I do it in Excel. So first of all, I have a column which has the fabric. So this is the name of the fabric. I know that sweet tea is a Sweetwater fabric. I know that most of them are Moda. So I don't really put much more than the name of the fabric in here. Then the type, that is what I've got in it. And you can see change of seasons. I had a layer cake. JR stands for jelly roll. And then if I scroll down a little, I've got fat quarter. I've also got FQ for fat quarter. So I don't think that it matters, to me what I put in there. It's really just an option that I, thought when I'm looking for patterns, it's good to know what type of fabric I've got in other words, how much of each fabric I've got. And then the next column is the pattern selected. And in this instance for sweet tea, I did actually purchase a pattern. I haven't made that up yet, but it's still on my list of to-dos. I'm sure we've all got those. And you can see for change of seasons, I didn't actually have a pattern for that because I'd started working on it prior to actually doing the pattern. And this is really just to help me out in case I want to know what I've done for something before it gets into my book, or if I'm, looking at stuff at night on YouTube, finding patterns, then I'll put it in here. And you can see that for this one here, I'm not going to pretend to try and say that, but anyway, it's a layer cake. And this one I'm using a pattern by Moonkin. They do great tutorials on YouTube for quilt patterns, and I really like her patterns because they come together really well. I think I've actually done the stacker bond for that one. Yeah, I have. I'll have to update that. And then the name of the quilt is a stacker bond, which you can probably read a bit better up here. And then this one is meant to say Meggles, not MW. So this is a pattern by Meggles, where Meggles is a company that I get a lot of my quilt fabric from, meggles.com.au. And she has a pattern where she did some houses, and I want to use this Nantucket Summer fabric to make those houses. Although I did use some of that Nantucket Summer to make a bag, so I'll have to see. And then Cottage Blue, I actually put the link to the YouTube channel in, which is another option that you could do, so that's linking direct to that pattern. I've actually finished that now and given that quilt away. Then I've got other things here. You can see I've got a Moonkin Stitchery layer cake. So I haven't put the link to the YouTube pattern. I could do that as I've done for the Cottage Blue one, but I know if I search Moonkin Stitchery layer cake, it'll come up. And in fact, I finished that one as well, so I wouldn't go back and do that. Zen Chic, I'm doing the Irish chain for that. That's still a work in progress. And you can see I've got others down here where I've got information. And I actually am going to update Sticks and Stones because it's a Missouri Star Quilting, if I can speak, pattern. And I actually bought a jelly roll, and then I also bought one fat quarter because that was recommended by Jenny when she did this pattern over at Missouri Star Quilting. And you can see I'm actually halfway through my Summer House Mathemagical. But anyway, and then there's one called Tail Feathers, which I haven't actually assigned to a fabric yet. And I think I've got most of my fabrics listed in here now. So that's the pattern, and in the next column I've got the binding. With this one, it's in the kit, so I actually purchased a kit for this purchase pattern for sweet tea. But then I've just kind of put what I think I'm going to do for the binding, just when I'm working out what I'm going to do. And you can see there's a lot of empty spaces in there. And then the backing, again, that was in the kit. And then I've got some others, so I've kind of named them how I think of them. So I got this really great fabric for $10 a metre, which is actually a Moda fabric too. It was on special and I bought a fair bit of it, so I sort of put that as, assigned it to that particular quilt. And then any supplementary fabric. So perhaps, for some things I can do things like, for example, indigo gatherings for that quilt, which is also finished. I used the sashing and it was the same as the backing, which is just a plain cream in that instance. And some of them don't need supplementary fabric. Obviously, most of mine don't, but it's there if I want to put that in. And the next lot is all about how I'm progressing. Now, first of all, I just want to check in with everybody, and I'm not sure if people know this, but as I'm scrolling, you can see that my columns are disappearing on the left-hand side here, and that's because I've frozen the column to stay there. You can do that in Excel, and this isn't a lesson in Excel, but just in case people are wondering. And also when I scroll up, you can see that the rows are disappearing. So this is done through this here. So you can see here on this little diagram, the blue is showing that the panes are frozen, both on the top row and the first column. You can freeze this anywhere you want. It just depends where you put your mouse. So if you click into a cell like this cell here, it would then freeze everything above it and everything to the left of it. But that's how I've made it going, so that when I scroll, I can only see, it's disappearing, the rows are disappearing and the columns are disappearing. And the reason I do that is so I can actually read the whole thing without having it shrunk down really small. I do have it a bit bigger than I would normally have it so that you can see it. But anyway, so the next columns are all about how I'm going with it. So obviously the headings are cut out, so that's have I cut out the fabric to make the quilt, have I pieced it together, in other words, have I put, have I got the piecing going. And you can see that some of them, like this one here, is work in progress. So I put a half triangle in for anything that's actually in progress. I don't need the words, I'm not sure why I wrote them in there, but that's in progress and that's in progress. And then the next column, the yellow column, is whether or not I've completed the top. And then have I pinned it? In other words, have I pinned the backing, the batting, and the quilt top together? Because sometimes I'll pin it and I won't actually get around to quilting it. Have I quilted it is the pink column. You can see I've got those marked off. And then is the binding done, which again is not something that I sometimes don't do that immediately after I've quilted it. And then the final column is a quilt complete. And I've just used a big tick symbol for that. So you can use that, or you could use an X, or whatever you want. So to insert a symbol, you just go to the cell where you want it inserted. I'm going to put one here just so to show you. And then in Excel, you go to the insert. Sorry, you have to click into the bar at the top and you go to the insert menu, because the symbol will then be highlighted. I'll just show you that again. When you go to insert and then try to choose symbol, it's grayed out. You need to click into the bar at the top and then say insert symbol. And then you just look for whatever symbol you like, in this case a green tick, and you can see that it's not the same size. So all I've done in that instance is go to the Home tab and increase the size of it, and that increases the size. And then I've used the center function to center it both ways, so it centers in the center of the cell. So you can do that, that's easy. And then once you've done it once, you can then just copy and paste that. So if I copied that cell and pasted it, now I'm using Control C to copy and Control V to paste, but you can also use the menu to do that. You can use the copy and paste menu. I don't tend to use the menu. I'm an old green screen user from way back, back in the 80s, and so I tend to use the keyboard for a lot of the things that I do. But that's how you do that, to get that tick in there. Now the other thing I want to show you is that with all of this stuff, once I finish the quilt, I really don't want to see it again. And so to change that, I'm going to just highlight the first row. So I'm back up on the word fabric now. And then if you go to data, if you go to your data tab and select this filter button here, it will put a little arrow in the bottom of each of the cells on the top row, and it's putting one in 0 because it thinks that there's something in there. So I'm just going to row O, not 0. I'm just going to delete that, and you see it took that away then. And I'm just going to show you that again. Let's see. If I have something in here and I do the filter, to take it off you just click it again. So if I click filter, because there's something in column O, it then will put a filter button on there. But if I take that away, in fact if I delete that row altogether, the filter will go away. Alternatively, if you don't have anything in there, like it won't put a filter symbol or a filter triangle on those cells that are empty, the columns that are empty. So in order to get rid of the ones that I've completed, I just click on that arrow, and then you can see here it shows you, do you want all of them showing or only the blanks? And so if I untick the tick, which is a bit counterintuitive, but there you go, it is, it will then take away everything where the quilt was completed, and it leaves me with the things that aren't finished yet. To know something's filtered is the actual filter changes. So instead of being an arrow, a down arrow, it changes to a little funnel shape with the down arrow underneath that. So that tells you which column you've filtered on as well. And you can filter on more than one column. If you have something in there, it won't filter on color, as you can see here, but if I put something in that colored cell and look again, then it will filter. So you just need to be aware of that when you're planning your spreadsheet for tracking your quilting. So really, I don't care about the things that I've already finished. I only want to know about the fabric that I have now. And the other thing I was going to show you was how to put this half triangle across a cell. So in Excel, to create that triangle, I'm just clicked into an empty cell here, and you go to the insert menu here, and then you choose the shapes. And if you click shapes, you'll see you've got a number of options. In this instance, you want to choose the right triangle, and then you need to draw it. So you just drag with your mouse to draw it on whatever sort of, thing that, however you want it. And then I put it into the cell like this, and then using the handles, so these are these little dots around the cell, I dragged it across so that I filled the cell that I wanted to fill with it. So it worked pretty well, I thought. It was sort of the easiest way for me to do it. And then if you right click on that, you then can go to format shape here, and then if you go to the fill, so I'll try and move this over a bit, I'm not sure that I can, but anyway, if you go to the fill option, then you'll see that the color here is the color button. Now that's off screen at the moment, but you can change the fill color and it will bring up the standard list of colors, and then you can choose whatever color you want. And that's only the first time you need to do that. From then on, again, you can copy it and paste it into any other cell, and it will sit exactly where you had it. So if I make this a bit not as tall, because I want it to look more like it's actually filled the cell rather than falling out of the cell, which this one here is, and I delete that, if I copy that again and paste it, you'll see it sits in the exact same position. So that's all I did, was I created that triangle once like that, and then I copied and pasted it where I needed it. So I have that, meaning that that's a work in progress. And you can see here's a blue one down here. So some of these I have already started. So my summer house, I've started piecing that, and I have I think I've got 3 quilt tops now sitting around that I haven't done. Actually, I think I have finished one. I did finish Shine. I made a baby quilt with that, and so that actually is completed. So now if I want to put that tick on in this cell here against that, this is what I would do. I would go to clear that filter so that it brings up all of them again, and then I just copy that cell and then scroll down to where I want that to be and paste it in there, and then hide that information again. So that's how I do it. I mean, there's different ways, I'm sure, to do things, but that's how I keep track of what I'm up to. And having said that, I think that I've got some of these that I need to add to where I've bought more fabric and haven't updated my spreadsheet, but we're always buying fabric, aren't we? So that is it for today, and I hope you enjoyed those 2 ways that I keep track of my quilting projects. Thanks very much for watching. This is Deborah. Cheers.